All right, let's talk about the global entertainment giant WWE. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the one man who helped create it all and who you've probably never even heard of.
Yeah, when you think WWE, you think McMahon, right? That name is basically synonymous with professional wrestling. They're a dynasty that's run the show for the better part of a century, building this massive global empire.
You've got 3 generations of them. Jess, then his son Vince J. McMahon, and of course, Vince K. McMahon. Grandfather, father, son. They've been the face of the company, shaping everything we see on our screens.
But here's the thing. They had a partner, an original partner, and this is his story. The story of the co-founder who has been practically wiped from the company's history, a guy named Joseph Toots Mondt.
So you gotta picture this. It's the early 20th century, and pro wrestling, well, it's in big trouble. The matches were slow, all mat-based, and they could drag on for hours. I mean, audiences were walking out. The sport was basically on life support.
So in walks our guy, Toots Mondt. He's the creative mind. He gets together with the biggest star of the day, the champion Ed Strangler Lewis, and a really sharp business manager named Billy Sandow. Together, they formed this supergroup, you could say. They were known as the Gold Dust Trio, and man, were they about to change everything.
And this is where Mondt's genius really kicks in. He looked at that old, slow style and just threw it out. He came up with something he called slam-bang Western-style wrestling. I mean, the name says it all. He mixed boxing, different wrestling styles, and even some good old-fashioned brawling to create something faster, more dramatic, and way more entertaining.
And it wasn't just what happened in the ring. These guys changed the whole business. They centralized all the bookings, they signed wrestlers to exclusive contracts, and they moved the shows out of tiny halls into major sports arenas. They turned a sideshow into a legitimate, big-time enterprise.
So for 100 years, the story has been that Toots Mondt was this great inventor. But what if that's not the whole story? What if his real genius wasn't inventing something new, but recognizing what had been lost?
So, the big question is, did the Gold Dust Trio actually invent this slam-bang wrestling? The official history says, yep, all them. But when you start digging into the actual historical record, a very different story starts to take shape. And check this out. This timeline lays it all out pretty clearly. That action-packed style wasn't new at all. It was actually the original American wrestling tradition from way back in the 1870s. It was only later that these boring, pinfall-only rules came in and nearly killed the whole sport.
Exactly. Just listen to this. Even the legendary champion Frank Gotch, from the era right before Mondt, was famous for a rough, slam-heavy, entertaining style. The very thing Mondt supposedly invented. Gotch wasn't some exception, he was what the fans loved to see.
So here's the crucial point. Mondt didn't corrupt pure wrestling. He saved professional wrestling. He saved it by returning it to the dynamic, explosive action that fans wanted to see in the first place. All right, so Mondt has this huge success. What's next? Well, his next great partnership, and this is the one that would create a global empire and, ironically, lead to him being completely erased from the history books. So after the Gold Dust Trio went their separate ways, Mondt took his successful formula and partnered up with a boxing promoter named Jess McMahon. In 1952, they formed the Capital Wrestling Corporation, which, you guessed it, would one day become WWE.
And get this, their control was absolutely insane. At their peak, they were handling the booking for 70% of the entire National Wrestling Alliance in the Northeast. That was the most lucrative territory in the country. They weren't just players, they were the ones running the game.
Then, in 1963, there's a big dispute. The NWA board doesn't want their guy to be the world champion. So what do Mondt and Vince McMahon Sr. do? They don't just accept it. Nope. They break away, form their own company, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, or WWWF, and just crown their own champion. It was a total power move that laid the foundation for everything to come. So Mondt was a visionary. He built a wrestling powerhouse from the ground up. But for all his incredible foresight, he had one massive blind spot, and it would prove to be his complete undoing. A new medium was on the rise, one that was about to completely shift the balance of power within the company he helped create. And Toots Mondt, well, he was about to be left behind. See, Mondt was an absolute master of promoting to live crowds. He knew how to fill an arena, but television, he just didn't get it. His younger partner, Vince McMahon Sr., saw TV and knew immediately that wasn't just a tool, that was the entire future.
Making matters so much worse was a crippling gambling addiction. Mont was blowing his fortune at the racetracks. And as he did, a frustrated Vince McMahon Sr. saw an opportunity. He sidelined his partner and eventually muscled him out, buying his share of the company for a fraction of what it was truly worth.
And just like that, his fall from grace was complete. The architect of modern wrestling, the man who co-founded WWE, ended his life in 1976, completely penniless. He was almost immediately forgotten by the very industry he built.
So why does any of this matter? Because even though his name has been allowed to slip through the cracks of history, his impact on what we all watch every week is absolutely undeniable.
I mean, really think about it. Without Toots Mont, there is no slam bang style. There's no McMahon empire as we know it. The sports entertainment we watch today might not even exist. His DNA is in every single show, whether his name is mentioned or not.
It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it, about how history gets written and who gets to hold the pen? And you have to wonder, how many other forgotten architects are out there, just waiting to have their stories told?